And our girls are blackbirds, riding with a villages. Get more than death if you boys really written them.
Trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. Rams down. Final play of the game in regulation. It is caught by Dyson. Can he get in? No, he cannot.
Welcome to the Goal Line Stand. Week 4 is in the books, and Taylor Swift is making headlines everywhere. Swifties are us. I don't know if there's any Swifties on the panel here. Rob, that's my thoughts on it. That's what I'm just rolling with. Anyways, Week 4 is in the books. Krish, I told you before we came on air that I'm going to throw you on the spot, and I'm throwing you on the spot right now because in the chat you put topics for tonight. And the very first topic you put on here is the NFL refs. Now, I have an idea what you're referring to. I need to know why you put the NFL refs in here and what it is you are referring to.
Yeah, so, I do a lot of betting in my free time. And I look at spreads, I look at money lines, I look at everything. And that holding call on Sauce Gardner, man, that was horrible. And then the 3rd and 20 with Patrick Mahomes running and him sliding at the goal line, that was another horrible call. So those are 2 calls right there that change the course of the game, I believe. I believe that if they call that holding call, it's 3rd and 30, right? That changes everything. I believe Jets go down and win the game. So with that said, I feel like that needs to be investigated. That needs to be looked at because players get held accountable, coaches get held accountable, but referees seem to, get away with a lot of things. Now, I will say, I've watched NCAA football for a long time. The quality of officiating is the best it's ever been, I believe. I would say in the NFL it's getting there, but it's not perfect. And I honestly think the quality of officiating in the NCAA is better than in the NFL right now. So that's a problem and that needs to be addressed for sure.
Krish, have you seen the play in question?
Yes.
Have you seen the play in question?
Yes, I have.
Okay, you understand that is textbook holding, correct? You realize that is legit textbook holding. You cannot grab somebody's shoulder pad and redirect them. That's literally the definition of holding, Krish. It's straight up. You see it.
It was a push off, though. That's the thing. Like it was
what?
It was a push
Oh my
off.
god! I literally watched this video from like 5 different angles, and bro, it's holding on every angle. He even has the jersey.
I honestly think you're just mad with how late the ref decided to throw the flag because it looked like he was going to throw the flag earlier and didn't throw it until the interception was made. I think that's why you're mad, Chris.
That's part of it, yeah. Definitely.
I was going to say. We have a guest with us tonight. Alex Coleman is with us. Alex, how you doing, my man? Chris got you on here.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing? I think I came in late. We're talking about Sauce.
Oh, no, you're good. Hey, we just got started. Chris is already ranting.
Yeah.
And we haven't even done introductions yet.
We do, yeah. we just got started, Alex. Yeah. No, we can't. We're talking about the Sauce Gardner thing, but you're more than what are your thoughts on that? Because I mean, like I said, I watched the video today numerous times because I watched the game live. It didn't look like holding originally, but I've watched the video now a few times, and to me, it's textbook holdings. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I just think there's no consistency with that ref. Like the play itself, sure. I can see a hold in why he would call a hold, but I can also see why you would hang on to the flag because of the situation. And he hadn't been throwing flag. He hadn't been calling that the entire game, so don't call it now. You know what I mean? Like I hate when a ref's decision can be very detriment to the outcome of the game. I don't really like that. Like if you're gonna call it, just be consistent throughout the game. You know what I mean? That was a pretty impactful play for him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, man. Like for sure. Like I think that's something that definitely, you know, if you're gonna call it consistently, right? You know, right, all game long. Don't make it like a pick and choose type of situation and make that decision, especially that late in the game. 3-point game. Jets were playing a lot better than I think anybody really expected them to. So yeah, you know, you don't make that call, you know.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so introductions again. Justin Arth is obviously with us as well as our staple quarterback of the situation of our show here. Alex, as you can know, he is guessing today, and Krish, obviously, as always, being hot take Krish with, you know, anything and everything that comes with anything hot takes. That's his doing. So he's here, and I'm Michael, obviously, back again as a host. Sure. Yeah, Alex, I don't know if you've ever heard Krish and his little segment of his little hot take segment, but we're gonna make it one here on the show for sure. So
throwing in the Schofield rankings and everything.
Schofield rankings, you got to throw that in there for sure. Absolutely, Alex. Why don't you go ahead and yeah, no, for sure. Alex, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody, so for people who, you know, first time listeners, whatnot, since this is the first time on the show.
How you doing, everybody? My name is Alex Coleman. I play wide receiver. Just recently signed with the Carolina Cobras, so I'll be catching passes from Justin. Last year, this year, technically this year, just won a championship with the Columbus Lions. Yeah, this will be my, I think, 5th season total playing arena football. This will be my first year playing these indoor rules, so really interested to see how that's going. But yeah, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Went to college at Capital University. It's pretty much it in a nutshell. You know, looking to get this 4th championship ring with Justin. So
yeah,
get ready for us.
You are.
Yeah.
So you said Ohio. So are you a Browns fan or a Bengals fan?
I am a Bengals fan, and it's rough right now. So
it is definitely rough. So we got a Browns fan that actually may be joining us a little bit later on. He's an offensive lineman who plays indoor as well. We're actually trying to get him down there, you know, with you guys down there in Carolina. So let's jump into week 4 news here. Now that we have the NFL refs thing out of the way that I figured Krish was alluding to when it came to Sauce. Oh man, the Chicago Bears, guys. Let's not even just talk about just the Chicago Bears here for a second. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos too. Let's talk about this particular game for a moment, because 2 0-4 teams. I mean, this was a rare situation, or 0-3 teams, a rare situation where there was 4 0-3 teams going into the week, and they were all playing each other pretty much. So this game was, I guess, how it's been typically going for both teams. Justin, the Broncos don't seem to be able to stop anybody on defense. The Bears can't seem to just, I don't know, win or play well for the most part. But Justin Fields looked a lot better this week, and the Bears still somehow blew it. What are your thoughts with both these teams? Because right now, as it sits, the Bears actually hold the top 2 picks in the NFL draft heading into 2024.
Well, I guess it might be time for the Bears to take both Drake May and Caleb Williams at the top of the draft, just to make sure they don't fail on a pick, I guess. I don't know. But no, if we go talk about the game, I look at this game as it's a tale of, I would say, 2 different halves, but in reality, the 4th quarter was when Denver really kind of started making adjustments and changes and coming back into the game. But I mean, when I sit down and look at the film, I'm seeing Denver defensively, they're only bringing 4, which I can kind of understand. Okay, you're going to say, hey, like, Justin Fields, throw it into this zone coverage because you have a tendency to do so. And you're going to have to throw the ball at some point. But essentially you're daring an offense that likes to run the football and a quarterback that likes to run the football to run it up and down your throat, which is what they were able to do. I think Justin Fields actually did play a really good game of football. But there are a couple mistakes that I think he still maybe even cost the Bears the game, at least in some specific scenarios. But at the end of the day, Denver wasn't aggressive enough on defense in the first 3 quarters. And once they started blitzing 5, they started forcing Justin Fields to process things, which we haven't seen Justin Fields have the ability to process more complex NFL defenses. And so that's where drives started being halted, turnovers happened. And then you even take it to that fumble recovery that was taken back for a touchdown. It's not the best play call in the world. So that's more of a coaching error as opposed to a Justin Fields error. But where I still would put maybe some blame on Justin is with the play action fake. The quarterback's responsibility on a play action fake like that is to continue to get depth after the play action fake, because the one thing you never want to happen is a defensive end or a linebacker like we saw come straight up the field and not even respect the handoff or the play action fake. So you need to be in a position to turn, flip your hips, and get that ball out and live for another down. He was kind of more lackadaisical with the handoff and getting back, didn't necessarily get depth. And by the time he really turned around, defenders in his face, and then it's just the unfortunate couldn't get the ball up in enough time to try to get it out of his hands and live for another down. So that's something that's obviously just one coaching point that should be fixed from now on. But obviously it was a 28-21 game at that point. And a costly error that Fields made in almost a pretty much spotless game from Fields that I was very happy to see him actually start playing a lot better. But so in reality, my take saying that if they have the number 1 and number 2 picks, they take Drake May and Caleb Williams. I'm not really saying they should do that, but just for the sake of Chris's hot take, let me go ahead and steal that from him, I guess. But you flip it over, to Denver offensively, and I mean, obviously, the Chicago Bears are just their defense is just a butter knife. You can take anything through them, and so
it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I mean, they're fairly good in run defense, but they can't really cover, which is again very kind of mind-boggling because you look at their roster and what they have, you would think, okay, these guys should be able to cover. So I don't know if it's coaching, but I will say Russell Wilson, especially in the second half, played really good football, distributed the ball to playmakers, got and made plays with his legs, which is kind of more reminiscent of Russell Wilson of 2 or 3 years ago. And just a combination of 2 bad teams making multiple mistakes and allowed Denver to come back in the game and steal this one.
This is the second week in a row where I have watched a team play zone with a cornerback who is literally a shutdown cornerback. 2 weeks ago it was the Jets with Sauce Gardner, who didn't give up a single reception when he was guarding CeeDee Lamb, but CeeDee Lamb still torched the Jets because they had him in the zone. This week it was Patrick Surtain with Denver, and Chicago was torturing for 3.5 quarters. As a receiver, Alex, that's got to be something that you want to see on the opposite end is your shutdown corner playing a zone. I can't imagine that there's a quarterback and wide receiver combo out there that's like, please play man-to-man on my best guy when you have those 2 corners. Why do you feel that these 2 coaches, Sean Payton, who is the Super Bowl champion, caliber head coach, and Robert Saleh, who's a defensive-minded head coach, why do you think that these guys are playing zone or allowing their defensive coordinators to play zone when you have those 2 types of corners there? Because it's definitely, like Justin was saying, kind of like bad coaching almost to a degree.
So in terms of the Jets, I've seen Sauce be effective in both because he's so long and rangy. I could see him right now. He's a very good press corner, but I could see him like later on because he's not very top end fast either. So I could see him being effective in that because their safety play is so good. But when it comes to the Broncos, that's a whole nother thing. I don't know why they would put somebody like Patrick Surtain. To me, is going to play man. You know what I mean? And even though Kareem Jackson's a little bit, he's a nosy safety. He still covers the field pretty well. So I really don't understand why they need him to do that. You know what I mean? If it's me, depending on the only time I think I wouldn't let him do that is if somebody superior or equally sized. Other than that, I'd have him just lock on man to man with their best guy, and we're just going to go like that because we're going to play best on best. It is a different situation with the Broncos versus the Jets because the Jets are more of a well-rounded defense. You know what I mean? So I would just play to my players' strengths. Like,
Yeah.
they're not playing to their strengths. You know what I mean? And the two teams alone, when we were talking about the Bears and the Broncos, I don't know if I was kind of waiting on Justin Fields to make a mistake. You know what I mean? Because it's like that's just what he does. You know what I mean? Like I think people take a guy that's superior athletic, and which he is, and you got to think when he played Ohio State, he had what 2 first rounders playing receiver.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State just pumps out friggin' weapons like constantly over there. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that they develop quarterbacks isn't really the best. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you can name a prolific Ohio State quarterback. You know what I mean? Which obviously is taboo being here in Columbus, but it's just the truth. You know what I mean? He just happened to play with some very good receivers. When it comes to Russ, like I just wish people would slow down on Russ because I think Russ is giving us a glimpse of an issue that somebody like Patrick Mahomes might have later on because Russ was arguably the most successful young quarterback we've seen in a while. You know what I mean? He went to back-to-back Super Bowls, but he also had a very well put together defense, a legendary defense, and he had Marshawn Lynch. He don't got that now.
Right.
You know what I mean? The offense they're asking him to play in, he has playmakers, but his leading receiver is Cortland Sutton.
Yeah,
Cortland Sutton is a 50-50 ball guy. He's not Jerry Jeudy is not. I don't think he's doing what he's supposed to. I think people looked at Jerry Jeudy as a 1. He's not playing like a 1. And then you take away a key player that was supposed to be his slot down the field guy in KJ Hamler, who's no longer even with the team. So you're looking at somebody to fill that void. Cortland Sutton plays to me like an extended tight end. So who is he supposed to get the ball to? You know what I mean? So.
Well, and I think that brings up an interesting question. We'll put a pin into the Bears because we're going to come back to them a little bit later with another topic we're going to talk about because Krish had a good one later on in the show. But Krish, I want to go to you real quick about the Broncos because next week the Broncos face the Jets. And as we all know, the offensive coordinator in New York right now is Nathaniel Hackett. And about 4 months ago, or maybe it wasn't even 4 months ago, it's probably 3 months ago, Sean Payton opened his mouth and said it was the worst coaching job he ever saw in Denver last year. And now his Broncos are 1-3, barely scraping by of a win against the Bears, going to play Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator. Sean Payton kind of looks like a fool right now. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah, 100% he does. Without a
Absolutely.
doubt. 100%. And, I'll say this about the Broncos and Russell. I think Alex hit it right on the nail. But I'll add that Russell has been playing out of his mind this season. 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's, I believe, top 3 in the league in passing touchdowns. And he's throwing the least amount of interceptions, right? With quarterbacks with those kind of stats. So I think Russ has improved under Sean Payton, which is kind of impressive that Sean has been able to kind of turn him around. But at the same time, I feel like their offensive line has improved down in Denver. So, they're keeping him upright. They're keeping the pressure off him. But I think the big thing for this game against the Jets is Zach Willson. I'm interested to see if this is the game where we see Zach put it all together. For me, I'm against that Denver defense. I'm hoping to see a 300-yard game from Zach Wilson. And I know that sounds wild and out of realm, but what he did this past week, he showed that he had that in him. So I believe that he's going to have a big game.
I have a very interesting take on Zach Wilson. Now, when he got drafted, mind you, I wasn't a big fan of Zach, right? We'll segue right into Zach Wilson's maturity. I was not a big fan of him. But I wasn't a big fan of him because his floor, in my opinion, was so low, right? We knew that he had shown flashes. We knew that he had the arm strength. We knew he had the talent. We knew it was there. We saw it at BYU. But the floor was so low. It was very similar to the Josh Allen situation when Josh Allen came out, right? Floor was really low. Stats didn't really back up everything that we saw with him. And look where Josh Allen is now. The difference for me in this situation, and I mentioned in the chat with Krish, I did not mention in our chat, Justin, but to me, it's the Jets organization has failed him. In a roundabout manner, they have found a way to destroy this kid's confidence extremely early. And I don't know if anybody else feels that way. But his rookie year, you knew that he was a project. You knew that it was going to be a developmental time. He didn't play the greatest. He got hurt the second year in preseason. And then he came back, and the very first instant that he played poorly, you were talking about possibly benching him for Mike White again. Now, Mike White was playing really well, don't get me wrong. But you were automatically going back to, we might start Mike White. As a quarterback, that's got to destroy your confidence. And then he's also had, 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years?
Yep.
I mean, so like you're talking about a kid who was already a developmental project. You got the offensive coordinator, and then in his third year, you go outside Nathaniel Hackett for one reason and one reason only. You know that it's going to lure Aaron Rodgers to possibly come to you, and you go all in on him. You build an offense around Aaron Rodgers, something you did not do for Zach Wilson. Granted, there were pieces in place. Breece Hall, you brought in Garrett Wilson. Like, there was pieces in place. You didn't build an entire offense around him. And then you acted like a 39-year-old quarterback possibly couldn't get hurt, to the point where Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and you have to scramble in Zach Wilson to replace, to make an offense fit Zach Wilson. Is it just me, or does it just feel like this entire organization has failed this kid since they drafted him at 2 overall?
I mean, I have a ton to say. You go ahead first, Justin.
Alex, I'll let you take this one. I'll come
I
after
really
you.
I really hate the Zach Wilson situation. I really do. Because like you said, you built a car for Aaron Rodgers to drive. You know what I mean? So you got these weapons. Like, I'm not sure that Aaron Lazard might have been his first, one of his choices to go to. I'm not sure Randall Cobb would have been one of his guys to bring in. Those are Aaron Rodgers' guys. He knows where to expect them. He knows how they're going to run their routes. The one guy he's learning was Garrett Wilson, but who wouldn't have to learn Garrett Wilson is Zach Wilson. And then you bring someone like, I don't understand the acquisition of Dalvin Cook either.
No,
because why do you need that? Why do you need him? Like, it hurts Dalvin, but it doesn't really help y'all either, because Dalvin isn't a backup. I don't think he's at that spot now, but Breece Hall isn't either. And it's one of those things to where, when it comes to the Jets, like, what are you basing your team from? The last successful quarterback y'all had? Because who was that? Joe Namath? Like, who was the last guy? Brett Favre? Like, it's always
Chad Pennington, maybe? Yeah. Chad Pennington, maybe?
You look statistically, it's Pennington.
Yeah, I mean, Sanchez
for the butt fumble.
Yeah, Sanchez was a good game manager that they went to the playoffs a few times, but what's the difference in Sanchez and somebody like Andy Dalton? Doesn't get you anywhere, you know what I mean? But I think they did the same thing a few years ago when they had Geno. Geno was a highly gunslinger from the Big 12, putting up 5,000 yards and things of that nature, and he came there and they really didn't develop him. So you see these guys, and he just happens to play for the Jets. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm not mistaken, Joe Flacco had him rolling for like a few games, and then Mike White came in, and then Zach was. But it's one of those things to where I think it's, for some reason, it's those markets. Because you look at someone, Zach Wilson was what? He was a top 5 pick, wasn't he?
Second overall.
Second overall. Which normally would give you 9 lives, like Baker Mayfield. In any other capacity, Baker Mayfield would have been gone. Nobody would have gave him this many chances. The Browns that year, you could argue they had one of the greatest assembled rosters, and he did nothing with them.
Yeah, but again though, with Baker Mayfield, I feel that his situation is actually very similar to Zach's.
Yeah.
In unstable organization,
Mm-hmm.
Baker had like 6 offensive coordinators. I mean, I think I heard a stat in the game
Mm-hmm.
against with Tampa Bay this week that he's had 6 different head coaches and 7 different offensive coordinators. It's his sixth year in the league. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
And
like
see, but that's where they messed up.
But Alex Smith went through in San Francisco too. I think people forget about this. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until he got to Kansas City where he had some stability that he really started thriving and he
Yep.
really started showing out. Like I think these organizations, like take a look at San Francisco with Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
You drafted a guy based upon his potential, his ceiling, but if you're not going to fully commit to that,
Mm-hmm.
then what's the point? Like
Yeah.
Buffalo fully committed to it, and look where Josh Allen is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm wrong, Justin. Maybe I'm just being too harsh on the organization here, but there's a reason certain organizations continually lose every year.
They
No,
keep striking out.
I'm in full agreement with you. I mean, I think this starts from the top down. I mean, we could take it and look at from a business perspective. Like, what the organizations that are most successful and continually successful are the ones that have good leadership at the top, and it's a trickle down effect, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing with these football organizations. What are some of the best organizations in the NFL or in professional football in general? It's the ones with good ownership and good leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that with the Jets. In my entire life, I've never seen the Jets with good leadership and good ownership. And
Yep.
they constantly find ways, whether it's mishandling Rex Ryan or mishandling Mark Sanchez, to mishandling this Aaron Rodgers situation, and even Zach Wilson. Like, I mean, I think Zach Wilson has matured greatly this season in front of our eyes. And is not really being given a chance to succeed. And we forget, too, he was one of the youngest draft picks ever in the history of the NFL, too. So the kid is still
Mm-hmm.
younger than me and has played professional football longer than I have. And so, or right at the same number of time that we've both been playing professional football. And it's like, you can't expect the guy to be the savior of a franchise when he's not given the tools, he's not given the opportunities, and then he's also the youngest guy in the field. Nobody's there to mentor him until you go out and you really try to replace him with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers does the un-Aaron Rodgers thing to do and says, hey, I'm taking this kid under my wing. He reminds me of me. So it's just, I don't, that for that reason, I don't like the Jets organization. Now, hey, if you want to call, talk to me, sure, I'll still listen to a phone call. But with that being said, I mean, it's hard to look at this Zach Wilson situation and say, man, this guy's got all the tools. And what Robert Saleh is saying in practice of this guy being more patient, practicing back shoulder throws, making plays in practice that haven't yet translated to a game. And then you see in this last game that everything started to translate a bit more. Yeah. It was, in a way, a coming out party for Zach Wilson. And I look at this and say, yeah, next week's a must-win game if you're the New York Jets and if you're Zach Wilson. But if you win that and get on a roll, there's no reason why you can't be in the AFC wildcard hunt. I mean, you look at that and you got to say it starts from the top down, and I'm not seeing anything that gives me confidence in – now, I mean, don't get me wrong. Robert Saleh, great head coach. I think leadership and stuff's fine there. I think he's doing a tremendous job in trying to instill confidence in Zach. But the team dynamic, the ownership groups, things like that, that's where I think Zach Wilson is being failed.
Yeah. See, I think Robert Saleh, though, is a little bit to blame here as well, though. I have to blame him a little bit because he's allowed this coaching staff underneath him to basically push Zach Wilson to the side, and now they have to scramble to get him prepared. As a backup quarterback, or at least in my opinion, where I was former, on a coaching staff, we always made sure our backup quarterback was prepared. Maybe not getting the starter reps, but he was prepared with the playbook that is in hand. They did not do that in his first 2 games, and it looked terrible. Now, on top of that, the media doesn't help this situation. Look at Rodney Harrison this past week. I wasn't going to bring this up originally, but it really irks me. And it irks me primarily because it's one thing for us to say, like, hey, this guy doesn't have it or this guy isn't here, because we're not bound or tied in a sense of being a media personality that's got millions of people watching us, right? Like, we don't. The honest to truth. But in that situation, just a flat out try to goad somebody as like Chris Jones into saying this guy's hot garbage, and B, actually just going on air and saying this guy's garbage, like, you're destining this kid to fail before he even gets a chance. I mean, the game was great. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes in this game. And the only thing that Rodney Harrison wanted to do was talk about how he was hot garbage. Like, it's awful, man. I hate it. I hate seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, that gets directly to you too. Somebody with that type of reputation, somebody with that type of pull, somebody with that type of voice, that gets directly to you. That comes directly to Zach Wilson. Like, he's hearing that. So I think it was unnecessary. But, like, that's the point I was making about the difference in him and Baker is the platform. But it also comes from ownership. Like, Hugh Jackson said that Baker shouldn't have started, right? But I think it would have been better for Baker to play behind I just lost his name. I forget what his name is. The guy from Virginia Tech. What's the quarterback's name?
Ooh.
Baker's first.
That's a very good question.
Taylor.
Oh, Tyrod Taylor. That's right.
Taylor.
Ty God.
I think he would have benefited from sitting behind Tyrod for a while, because all the best quarterbacks that we've seen have done that. Aaron Rodgers did it. Patrick Mahomes did it. Because you shouldn't have to be thrown in a place where you have to save a franchise. But Cleveland is a lot quieter than New York. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
sure.
whatever woes that Baker was
massively.
Exactly. Whatever woes that Baker was going through, he could still go through them, and it wasn't magnified like they are in New York. New York is like, when are you going to get us back? There's nowhere to get Cleveland back to. You know what I mean? Like, there is no expectation. So it's like,
get them somewhere.
Yeah, just get us somewhere. But you got to develop them.
Well, and to be honest with you, Baker did get them somewhere. I mean, if you think about it, he got in the first playoff win since, like, whatever it was, like 1990 something, and literally he was a defensive stop away from beating Kansas City in Kansas City the following week. So I mean, he technically got them somewhere. So Baker flashed, and then he played the following year with two separated shoulders or two banged up shoulders. First, it was his non-throwing shoulder, and he toughed through it, and then it was his throwing shoulder later on in the season. And he still played, and what they did was they went out and got Deshaun Watson, gave Deshaun Watson this massive contract, and said, here, go to Matt Rule, who had no business being a head coach in the NFL to begin with, and like, have fun in Carolina, good luck. And Zach Wilson, yes, he's in a bigger market area, but that is even more important, in my opinion, for this franchise to have gone all in. You're drafting him at 2 overall. Like, no rookie quarterback should be thrown into the point where you have to turn this around right away. Like, we're picking 2nd overall for a reason. So, but at the same time, like, if you're going to do that, in my opinion, you have to put your faith into him, because you can benefit from it like Buffalo did with Josh Allen. I keep bringing that up because that's the case. And honestly, if Patrick Mahomes hadn't landed in Kansas City, who knows where Patrick Mahomes would be, because Mahomes was also another guy that had, believe it or not, a fairly low floor because of his unorthodox footwork, his unorthodox, throwing style, his unorthodox this. So who knows what could have happened if he hadn't gone to a stable situation as well. Krish, I'm coming to you real quick because you've been quiet for a little bit, and me, Justin, and Alex, apparently you're fairly long-winded. But Krish, like, you put CJ Stroud in the chat as something to talk about. Now, we were just talking about Ohio State quarterbacks and how they don't develop. Now, Stroud is a 2nd overall pick, and he hasn't thrown an interception yet. And he's looking extremely legit with a team that, I mean, they're 1-3, right? I don't think they're 2-2. No, they're 2-2, right? 2-2. Yeah, they're 2-2 with a team that has, in some people's business, don't have any business being 2-2. What's your take with the Stroud, situation? I got a feeling that Justin will be talking about him here in a little bit, but What's your take here with Stroud? I mean, why'd you put him in the chat here?
Well, I was watching all 22 film on him the other day, and his pocket presence is unbelievable. I mean, the way he steps up and makes throws and fits them in tight windows. At being a rookie, the most veterans can't do what he's doing. And so it's really surprising to me, but it's not at the same time. The Texans are a young, talented team. If you look at the receiving core, you have Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Robert Woods. Those are 3 solid receivers. You can make the argument that that's a, top, I'm not going to say top 10. I'll go with top 12 receiving core in the NFL and like overall balance wise. And so I think D'Amico Ryans are doing a great job coaching up CJ Stroud. I think CJ is a very coachable athlete. I mean, you watch how he developed throughout the season at Ohio State. And honestly, like I keep saying this, I cannot believe they took Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. Because Bryce Young is not a good quarterback. It's been proven week after week that Bryce Young will never be successful in the NFL. So
I hear this every day in the chat, so that's why I'm laughing. I will absolutely 100% get to the Carolina Panthers in a minute, just because there was a news report. Well, there was a new. Yeah, trust me, Alex. It gets a lot worse in the chat. There was a news source. I might as well just talk about it real quick here before we jump into Justin's top 5 quarterback play, which is your favorite segment that you just don't know about yet, which is usually my line, but since the spring football reports is not running right now, we'll give it to Justin. The Panthers are looking for a wide receiver 1 to trade for. Now, this goes back to what we were just talking about when it comes to poor management. Like when I worked in kitchens for a very long period of time, and we used to talk about chaos comes from the top down. If it's chaotic, it comes from the top down. Like it means the top, and it's the same with football. If it's chaotic, it comes from the top down. You traded your wide receiver 1 to move up to take Bryce Young. Then you spent a high 2nd round pick on Jonathan Mingo. You have Terrace Marshall, who was a 3rd round pick on roster, who was a beast at LSU. Terrace Marshall, he's just battled some injuries. And then you brought in Adam Thielen, who's a 55-year-old wide receiver. I love Thielen, don't get me wrong, but he's old. And now you want to go trade for a wide receiver 1, but you haven't even used Mingo. You've barely used Terrace Marshall. Your offensive line can't protect Bryce Young. What is a wide receiver 1 really going to do for you? You need to look for an offensive lineman, because a wide receiver 1 is not going to do you anything. And DJ Moore is slowly getting into that Chicago offense, which is awesome to see. But you had a wide receiver 1, and you chose to give up on him. Carolina, you got to get your act together. I do not know what's going on over there, but that is just mind-boggling to me when I saw that report. I don't know if anybody else has any feelings on that, but I couldn't believe it when I saw it, because they're not using Mingo and Marshall, and it blows my mind.
It's an excuse to me. That's an excuse.
Yeah.
Like a wide receiver 1, Carolina is actually one of the only teams outside of Philly who didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver that went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The year they went, I believe Greg Olsen led their team in receiving, but they still went. You know what I mean? They have the tools. Like Adam Thielen, a guy who at his peak was a 1 for the Vikings, is a 3 now, which is good because you can use him to work the same areas you would use a tight end for. You know what I mean? Like, one thing about his game, he's always been a precise route runner. That'll never leave you no matter how much you lose your speed. So he can work the areas that Kelsey takes advantage of, that those type of guys take advantage of. Then, like you said, Terrace Marshall is like 6'2", 6'3", has down the field speed, has size. You can definitely use that. And with Mingo, you can use that. So it's like, that's an excuse. That's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
Bryce Young, contrary to popular belief, is a very good quarterback. But his offensive line sucks. They're terrible. And one thing that he did suffer from, he didn't get to play with the elite Alabama teams.
Right.
There's some other teams that were stacked. Like if he got to play with Greg McElroy's team or AJ McCarron's team, we'd be having a different conversation. But he didn't get to play with them, and he still accomplished what he accomplished. He can't control his size, but his awareness, his pocket presence, his arm talent, It's better. It's better than CJ's to me. CJ is just doing a good job. He's doing a very good job. But, and this is the last thing I'll say, I don't fall in love with the Texans because this has happened in history. Matt Schaub was young with the young receiver with Andre Johnson. They did decent. Deshaun Watson was young with a young DeAndre Hopkins. They did decent. CJ Stroud is young with a young Tank Dell and Nico Collins. He's doing okay. It's his rookie year, though. It's hard to prepare for any rookie because you don't have film on him. So you kind of got to just wait and see what he does second, third year. This first year, I mean, even if he has a good season, they're not going to win anything.
I mean, for me, I am much more a CJ Stroud fan than I am a Bryce Young fan. I like Stroud better overall as far as my just seeing my tape on him. I just think Stroud was a little bit better, more ready for the NFL. But what I will say is, for me, it's primarily because of Bryce's size. I know that he can't control that, and I know that that's talked about a lot. But if you take a look at Kyler Murray in a situation, like Murray rolls to his right so much because he can't see over those 6'6", 6'7" linemen. I know it seems like a cliche thing or an excuse for some of these shorter quarterbacks to say that, because guys like Drew Brees made a career out of it at 5'10", but they're not as talented arm-wise as Drew Brees was. So I think that kind of gets lost in translation. Bryce scares me because of the size, only because of injuries, not because I think it affects his play as much. I honestly hope that they all succeed. But if I was the Panthers in that situation, I would have been taking Stroud. Now, we'll jump into Justin's, top 5 quarterback performance and honorable mention. Okay, well, by all means, you can go right.
Things to say to bow tie all this together.
Yeah, that's fine because we're on a quarterback kick, so you can go ahead and do that. So jump right into it, my man.
I mean, but when we look at the Panthers situation versus the Houston Texans situation, or even the Jets situation, kind of bow tie all these things together, I think these are perfect bookends of different situations. Why are the Houston Texans successful, or why were the Buffalo Bills successful with Josh Allen? Because they gave their quarterback things to work with. You look at Houston. You look at Nico Collins and Tank Dell. You have young receivers working with a young quarterback and building
and Damon Pierce
in front of our eyes. You look at Carolina. You have Carolina. You have guys that you're not playing while you're playing your rookie quarterback and just throwing them into the fire. Don't get me wrong. Adam Thielen, amazing receiver. I still think he's got plenty left in the tank, and maybe that's just biased Viking fan coming out and seeing what he did against us. But I still think there's an ability for Adam Thielen to, and you've seen it, Adam Thielen is helping Bryce Young develop in front of our eyes.
Justin, just real quick. The only reason why I mentioned Thielen is I think Thielen is still a top wide receiver in the league. I just do not think he's a wide receiver one. That's the only reason why I mentioned it. That's the only reason why I mentioned it. I think Thielen's still a very good wide receiver. I just don't think he's a wide receiver one. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, you look at that, and you have young guys on the roster that the Panthers are not playing with their young quarterback to develop chemistry and start to see some of the fruits of your labor of these draft picks. Let things gel. They're too afraid to have everything blow up in their face, is what it feels like. And they're trying to, in a way, throw Bryce Young in the fire because he's built for it, but then maybe they don't think the wide receivers are built for it. So they're trying to be more cautious with the situation to let Adam Thielen maybe teach them in the film room and teach them in the wide receiver room on how to truly play wide receiver at this level in the NFL. But you look at what made, Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City, or the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, what made them successful and what made a high-risk, high-reward draft pick of a quarterback turn into the high reward was the fact that they were willing to develop them and put the assets in them to develop them, whether that be going out and trading for Stephon Diggs, or having the offensive staff and the head coaching staff that Kansas City has. And being able to develop that. And then obviously a Tyreek Hill and all that, and Travis Kelce, and the list goes on and on and on. But you you see the two contrasting like scenarios here of why Zach Willson is struggling in New York or why Bryce Young is struggling in Carolina this early on. I feel like it's the same stories over and over and over again. There are some organizations that are well run from the top down that know how to handle young quarterbacks that have this high risk, high reward potential. And then you have other organizations that are not, and you could very well screw up these guys. I mean, I hate to even say it and throw a shot at you, Michael, but you saw it with Robert Griffin III too, with mismanagement.
Oh no, absolutely.
And so there's organizations that are known for this because of the top down. Now, and you look at the Commanders and what they're doing now. It looks like they're turning a leaf with Sam Howell, and obviously the organization's completely fresh, brand new. So we're yet to see what we've got there. But I mean, just to bow tie it all together, this is what makes or breaks NFL organizations here, guys. So if you're an NFL owner just sitting listening to us for whatever reason, and you're trying to like one have a quarterback or two have somebody to come in and tell you how to run your organization, we're available.
We are all available, all of us. I mean, I won't come in to play quarterback. I'm too big for that, but I will definitely come in and give my opinion on stuff for sure.
But I mean, at the end of the day, some of these organizations, you probably need to audit yourself and figure out, are you doing this correctly? Like, look at the track record of a proven process, right? Like, this is what's a proven process to develop a high risk, high reward quarterback like this, and you don't follow the mold because you're too arrogant to think, oh, I've got it because I'm so-and-so, or I'm I'm this organization, and it's blowing up in your face.
I feel like the Panthers are panicking because I feel like they think they can win this division. And I think it doesn't matter who was going to be there at quarterback or who was going to be there at wide receiver for them. I don't think the team was in a good enough shape to win this division, regardless of who was there. Like, so the fact that they even believe that they're in that point is way too much of a false bravado of sorts. That is kind of maybe it's an ego check they need because they brought in Frank Wright or whatever it may be. But the coaching staff down there is, I mean, it's a fairly solid coaching staff. So that, I mean, it's surprising to see this.
Yeah.
And especially with the lack of wide receiver usage, man. Like, that's my biggest thing.
But as a Atlanta native and an Atlanta Falcons half fan, I guess you could say, because I got two favorite teams. Yeah, ask me about the story later if you don't know. But you look at that and you see what we're doing over here in Atlanta. I mean, we don't use receivers either. So it seems to just be an NFC South thing. And it frustrates me to oblivion. But, hey,
Atlanta doesn't have them.
Oh, yeah.
They put all their chips in the Drake London bag.
And I don't think Drake London's good.
I'm starting to agree with you on that one.
I don't think one of the weird statistics that I saw, and I'm not one of these people that like to take the statistics and hang my hat on them, but it's always funny how it comes back full circle. And Drake London since 2000, I think it's like 2016, he ranks sixth on the top 10 list of jump ball percentage of passes in college. Number 1 on that list is N'Keal Harry. Number 4 on that list is Laquan Treadwell. And the list is actually, I don't have the list in front of me right now, but the list is actually filled out with guys that basically did not make it in the NFL. They all busted out. So if I'm looking at that list, and it goes back full circle to Drake London, who obviously had injuries in college. He was a jump ball guy in college for the most part. He does not separate. Tyson Campbell was in his lunch bag the entire game in London, and that one touchdown was on the sideline in a ball that he had to make. And he has great hands. Don't get me wrong about Drake London. He has great hands. He just can't separate. And you can't separate in the NFL. You can't succeed, plain and simple. All right, Justin. I don't want to say that about a young player because I want everybody to succeed, but the bottom line is we know that they all won't succeed. So
exactly.
you know, I have been weary of Drake London since he's come into the league, and now I think we're starting to see it here into the second year. Maybe there's still a chance to turn it around. I don't know. Yeah. Let's get to your top 5 quarterbacks with your honorable mentions real quick here, because I'm very interested to hear this list.
Yeah, so I'll make them quick because I know we're running long on time, but I'll just throw out names of honorable mentions. I think I will preface this by saying I do think quarterback play this week in the NFL was a lot better than what we've seen in other weeks. So this top 5 list is like how Stephen A. Smith says on Stephen A.'s A list. It is this list is very fluent. Okay, so so we look at the honorable mentions. There any of these honorable mention guys could maybe jump into this top 5. So, but we got Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, and Zach Wilson as 5 honorable mention guys that could very well been 5 on my list. I mean, we've talked about CJ Stroud enough. We talked about Zach Wilson enough. I think Trevor Lawrence did what he needed to do, played decently well. Jalen Hurts, finally, good game out of Jalen. And Baker has been playing some pretty good football all season this year, -1 game. So, I mean, and Baker continues to play well for this Tampa Bay team.
Is Stafford in this?
Stafford is not in this.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. So, but again, you need to go back and look at my previous week. So Stafford's been in there before. So maybe I'm holding him to a little higher standard. But at number 5, I got Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson came in 133.5 QBR, 21 of 28, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers whatsoever. The dude made plays with his legs, was vintage Russell Wilson, and hopefully, like Chris said, he's playing some really, really good football this season. In general, I think this is the best football he's played this season, and there's definitely building blocks to stack on top of that. Russell Wilson's my number 5. Number 4, hate to say it, Justin Fields, number 4. No, I'm kidding. No, Justin. If you're listening, Justin, love you, bro. Glad we worked out together a lot in the offseason at times. But 132.7 QBR, 25 of 28, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, an interception, which wasn't good. And then obviously the fumble, which we talked about. I think Justin Fields finally put together a complete game passing. But the real question is this just the flash in the pan, or will he actually build on this and prove that he could be a franchise quarterback in Chicago? Because, again, this season's make or break for him. Now, we talked about the mistakes he had. Some of those mistakes are still on him. I will say some mistakes were still on coaching staff. But that's, I think, again, organizationally with the Chicago Bears. Number 3, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson didn't have to throw the ball too much to win this game. They were able to run the ball, and he was running the ball fairly well. Ended up with a 142.8 QBR, 15 and 19 for 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a fumble. But Lamar finally showed what this Todd Monken offense could potentially be. And he did what he needed to do in run checks. Every single run check that I looked at, now obviously I don't have the playbook sitting in front of me, so who am I to know that it's truly a run check? But whether flipping play, run check, protection calls, making plays in the pass game, taking what the defense gives you, Lamar Jackson definitely played a good game of football finally. Lamar Jackson's 3rd on my list. Number 2, I would say the best performing quarterback consistently all season long, Brock Purdy, number 2. Yes, you look at San Francisco, you've got good offensive play calling. You've got a bunch of guys around him that maybe elevates him. But at the end of the day, he's still got to be the leader and the captain of the ship. 134.6 QBR, 20 of 21, only 1 incompletion. And I'm pretty sure that was a drop pass. If I go back and remember. But 283 yards, 1 touchdown. Great game manager. Did very, very well with San Francisco this week and is continuing to play really, really good football, make good checks, get the ball to the playmakers. And, hey, I mean, being an NFL quarterback means you got to get the ball to playmakers in space and let them work. And when you got these playmakers, let them go. And number 1, thank you finally for my fantasy points. Josh Allen, a perfect 158.3 QBR, 21 of 25, 320 yards and 4 touchdowns. Finally, Josh Allen breaks out to have a game that we expect out of Josh Allen. So Josh Allen continues to build on it next week, more than likely. But finally, we saw not vintage Josh Allen, but we saw Josh Allen, the Madden cover superstar, without hopefully the Madden curse, knock on wood. So that's my top 5 and honorable mentions of the week. Let me know how I did in the comments section, and you can roast all my takes, whatever. It's all good.
Kyle Juszczyk, of all people, was the one that dropped that pass from Brock Purdy.
Yes.
Of all people, it was Juszczyk. Sam Howell, I want to mention, I think should be on your honorable mentions. He played really well against Philadelphia, too.
I did too. I thought he played well.
I thought he played really good. Krish,
did you say Herbert?
He did not say Herbert. No,
I did not say Herbert.
No, he didn't put Herbert in his top 10.
That's biased.
Krish,
I'm a Duck fan.
Krish,
I will give it to him though. Played very, very well concerning.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Krish, has there been a worse trade in NFL history that you could think of other than Trace Claypool for number 32? You're on mute, brother. I can't hear you. You're on mute. Yeah.
Maybe the Trey Lance trade, but I mean, other than that, I feel like Chase Claypool is horrible.
I mean, it's insane to me that you literally got called out for being lazy, and then you just went out there and just went dead man walking all over again. I don't understand Chase. I do not get it by any sense of the stretch of imagination. It makes zero sense to me. I don't know, man. I just that situation is bad.
I've never been a fan of him.
No, me either. I wasn't a fan coming out. Coaching decisions. What is going on? Well, we'll make this short. Coach Matt Eberflus looks like he wanted to throw that game. Brandon Staley again for the second week in a row, 4th and 1 from your side of the field. You fail to get it. Your defense bails you out again. Like, what is happening? I mean, the offensive coordinator for the Jets, I think it was the Jets, maybe wanted to blow that game, or maybe it was, I'm not even sure. It on the last second march, the time running off the clock. What was going on? What, did anybody have anything for this? I mean, it was miserable.
I mean, I'll say from being in coaching boxes at times when I've been hurt in college, I would say there's a lot of coaches that fall into one of two categories: 100% analytics or 100% feel guy. And so I think we're seeing too many offensive coordinators, or just too many coaches in general, 100% feel or 100% analytics, with making some of these kind of weird calls like this. But I will say a lot of play calling this year in the NFL has not been up to standard.
Analytics, I understand they're a good tool, but they shouldn't be the deciding factor. It takes everything out of the game. Like, as soon as Sam Howell scored that touchdown to Jahan Dotson to tie that game, it was like announcers and everybody was like, going for 2. Is he going to go for 2? Is he going to go for 2? And I'm just like, I get not wanting to go into overtime because you want to give yourself a chance to win if you can. But why would you just not try to just put it into overtime and just go back out there and do what happens? You won the coin toss. Unfortunately, the defense just didn't stop. The offense just didn't, get going back down the field. But why would you not want to do that? It just, going for 2, I get it. It's only 2 yards, and you should be able to get 2 yards in the NFL. But at the same time, like, it's the NFL. Like, it's not like it's 2 yards is easy to get. If it was, offenses would never leave the field, and everybody would score a touchdown every play. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Brandon Staley, man. I'm going to continue to be really harsh on him, man. I'm going to.
If it wasn't for Justin Herbert, he wouldn't have a job. Oh
my God, no. He might be the hottest. He might be the hottest coach in the hottest seat right now. Like, man, I don't know. 2 straight wins for them, though. They're 2-2, which is where we kind of didn't really expect them. We expected them probably to be 3-1, 4-0 at this point in time. But I mean, Brandon Staley, stop with the analytics, man. Just stop with them. I was impressed with what I saw from the Commanders. We'll get ready to wrap this up here a little bit. Vikings got their first win, which I'm sure made Justin extremely happy. Your Bengals, Alex. Your Bengals.
Yeah.
They were about as bad as Krish's Patriots. So, what's going on? Yeah. What's happening here?
I mean, we shot ourselves in the foot. Well, first of all, Zach Taylor needs to go. I'll disrespect to him, but he just has to go. Like,
I'm hearing this a lot. This really surprises me.
He has to go. We've completely abandoned the screen game. With a quarterback who cannot move, they're teeing off on him. They're sending all the pressure. We've abandoned the screen game completely. And we made a horrible choice, one, by paying a quarterback that's hurt. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the money. He absolutely does. But what if his calf strain turned into a tear? So it's kind of like you put your back against the wall. We know we're going to pay him, but you paid him while he's unavailable. It makes no sense to me. But regardless of that, we lost both division games and we got him hurt. I think we
I
could have sat him out
I think he
and
should have
tried to
sat
play
out.
from behind. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we should have tried to play our way back than just play him, and now he's hurt. I don't know what we're
It's a long
doing.
season. It's 18 games. I feel like that he should have been out for at least the first 2 weeks.
And I also think we
I get
should.
not wanting to fall behind, but
I don't care. Like I would rather have fought those 2 games. Maybe we win, maybe we lose, and we get him as healthy as possible.
Mm.
Give him almost a full 2 months out. I mean, it's a calf strain or whatever that is. That's one of his most valuable assets is his legs, and now he can't use them, so he's a shell of himself.
yeah,
You know. But like you said, we don't invest in a backup quarterback. So maybe that's the situation. I'm not sure.
you need
But
to invest in the offensive line because the offensive line, for as much money as you spent there last year, that looked pretty decent last year, has looked completely dreadful this year. Like this is
yeah,
like
we
two
look
years
worse
ago.
for
This is like a
sure.
2 years ago offensive line. Like it's bad.
And I think we undervalue, like we let Samaje Perine go. He's a key part of our offense, but we let him go because he does something different than when you got a backup that can give you 100 yards on the ground. He's probably valuable, and he's very good in the screen game.
I like Chase Brown, but it just when you let go of a guy who knows your protections, he knows your stuff, and Chase Brown being a rookie, Chris
Hmm.
Evans never really saw the field. I it's a valuable part to the game that I don't think a lot of people realize because it's not flashy.
Hmm.
It's like Kyle Juszczyk down in San Francisco, not flashy, but he is such an integral part to what they do.
It's
Um,
important.
it's so important.
But
Krish. Oh, sorry.
one
Go ahead.
thing we did,
Finish
one
your
thing
thing,
we
Alex.
did do, one thing that I am happy we did, I'll throw everything at the screen last year. Just we got rid of Trent Taylor and we got Charlie Jones who can actually be effective in the return
Yeah,
game
I
because
like
we were
Charlie Jones.
playing without that phase of our game. He was catch the ball, fall down, catch the ball, run out of bounds. When we need those hitting yards where we can get a good 15 from a punt return. I mean, Charlie already took one back.
Yep.
Trent hasn't come close to that. So that's the one upside from what we've done in the offseason.
Yeah, I really like Charlie Jones, so I hope he can continue to contribute. Krish, New England, Any,
Man, I don't
New
even want to
England.
talk about it, man. I mean, our offense,
Mm,
our offense sucks. I thought Bill O'Brien was going to come in and make this offense look good. And to be honest, this offense does pass the eye test. When you're watching them, they do look compared to last year. I'll say that. But I mean, this past game, they couldn't establish the run game. I had bet Ezekiel Elliott over 33.5 rushing yards. I put $40 on it. And I just watched that bet go out of the window, man. I thought Zeke was gonna have a
Against the Cowboys defense, that wasn't happening.
oh,
well, I mean,
Mm-mm.
I
God.
thought a bounce back game, revenge game for Zeke. But I mean, he's been ineffective. I think it was 5 carries for 14 yards, something like that, like atrocious. Ramondre wasn't effective. We couldn't get anything going on offense, and just Mac Jones, man. I don't know.
So I shared the statistic in the chat, and I'm surprised you still took that bet that Dallas was number one when it came to QB pressures, and New England was dead last in the league when it came to winning pass blocking schemes. I don't. If you can't win pass blocking, you're not going to win run blocking. It's just not going to happen. Like it's very rare that does that happen because passing blitzes turn into running blitzes from defenses when that happens because they just go like, well, we'll either get to the quarterback or the running back. Let's just tackle them both because we're there. So I'm surprised you took that bet.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mac is. I mean, he's so inconsistent this year. His completion percentage has actually dropped as the year has gone on, and I'm not impressed. I think he had a couple more games. I'm still believing in him, but maybe this season, and if not, we have to go Jack Bo next.
Honestly, this entire offense just looks like a college offense trying to play in the NFL. It's really what it looks like. I hate to say it because I know that Bill O'Brien just came from college, but this is when I watch these games, this is what it looks like to me. Justin, Minnesota got their first win, so I mean, you must be happy about that.
Minnesota did, but I still think turnovers are still an issue. I mean, it's you can't you look at that Kirk Cousins threw for the pick six. You got to throw that thing away. And a veteran like he's typically not prone to make a mistake that blatant. So you got to be able to not throw that. Now, the second interception, that's pressure. Ball gets up in the air. Could have even really been counted as a fumble. Okay, that happens. That's football. But the other one, you can't make that mistake. And I mean, I don't know. You look at Minnesota, and on paper, they're an improving team. On paper, they should be a better team than what they are. But if it wasn't for the run game, which I was very happy, a much more efficient running game, and then Harrison Smith being a closer again, Vikings still wouldn't have won that game.
Two more weeks, and I think Cam is going to take over that backfield. He looked really good in the short.
For a while, that needed to go get Cam Akers from the trade market.
In the very
DBs, man. I feel so bad for Harrison Smith.
Patrick Peterson.
Oh my God, I feel so bad for Harrison Smith. Just get him some guys, man.
You did not mention him. I did mention him. Sam Howell, Washington. We lost the game, but it was much better than what I was expecting, especially coming off the performance that he had the week before against Buffalo. I was so impressed with his resiliency. He looked much calmer in the pocket. He looked like he was ice cold as far as if he made a mistake, he just bounced back the next play. You got to have a short memory when you play quarterback. Justin knows that better than anybody. And against an Eagles team that has a defensive front that is probably better than any other two combined at this point, with maybe the exception of Washington, very close. Our offensive line looked much better. We still gave up some sacks. I mean, it was 5 sacks I think we gave up, 3 to 1 player. Our right tackle got eaten alive. We need to figure the right tackle spot out. That's been our weakest spot. But overall, even with that being said, much, much better from Howell, not turning the ball over, making plays, throwing the ball out, ball placement. That Jahan Dotson touchdown, that ball placement couldn't have been any better. We need a little more from Dotson, though. I think that this offense is going to get clicking more that we get from Dotson because it needs to take the pressure off Terry McLaurin. The run game, it looks pretty good. I don't know what happened to Antonio Gibson. I don't know why he's been obsolete. Our defense we knew was going to be a work in progress. Emmanuel Forbes, I was not happy with the pick when he first got taken because he's 6'4" and he's 150 pounds, but way too skinny and lanky. But he is a baller. He can game. I'm actually very impressed with him, and I think that as long as he continues packing on muscle, I think we might have got ourselves a nice little cornerback finally since Champ Bailey that could solidify that spot. We're young. So I knew that this was going to be like this for us, but I am now got a little bit of hope in Washington for the first time, probably in a long time, that we could actually maybe make a wild card playoff push and actually be a legitimate team to make that wild card playoff push. So I'm not going to get too excited, but it's probably one of the most exciting times for me as a Washington fan since I've been a fan. So, yeah.
So what's going on with Gibson? I didn't know you was a Washington.
I am a Washington fan. Yeah.
I'm a fan of Gibson. I love Gibson. Game.
I love Gibson, but if you take a look at Gibson and you take a look at Eric Bieniemy and how he runs his offenses, Gibson's skill set doesn't really fit in Eric Bieniemy offense. You take a look at a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, who I love Isaiah Pacheco, and Bieniemy doesn't ask the running backs to play receiver that often. It's more of the check downs, more of the, maybe we'll get you a swing pass type of situation. But when he has wide receivers and weapons around him, and Brian Robinson is able to run the ball for 4 yards a carry, he doesn't really ask Gibson to do a lot of that. He doesn't ask his running backs to do a lot of that. So I think that that's where he's not utilizing Gibson in that manner because, realistically speaking, we have Curtis Samuel who does a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
Except for Samuel plays wide receiver. And then on top of that, Diami Brown, who already has a rapport with Sam Howell, is starting to see the field a little bit more. So I think Bieniemy is just one of those guys, like, he spreads the ball around a lot. It's something that he always did in Kansas City. And Gibson just isn't seeing the opportunities because he's not being asked to be a traditional running back because that's what Brian Robinson's doing. You know, Robinson's just not as fast as Pacheco, so he's never going to take the top off of defense like Pacheco can.
Yeah.
I love Gibson. I wish I would see more from him, to be honest with you, but I just think it's a scheme thing with Eric Bieniemy, and maybe Gibson will pop off a few games this year where, you know, it looks much better, but I don't expect him to have a bigger role in this offense moving forward, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what they do with Curtis.
I mean, I like the little jet sweeps. I like the little pass plays that they put into him. I would like to see us hopefully get a tight end that's as athletic as Kelsey is, because I would like to see that. We have one on roster. He just isn't seeing the field right now, and that's Cole Turner. I'm hoping maybe he kind of starts working his way in. I like Logan Thomas for his size and his hands, but he's not as athletic as Cole Turner. So maybe
y'all got robbed too, because what was Jordan? The tight end y'all had right before, what was his name? Jordan. It was Jordan something.
Before Logan Thomas?
Right before Logan Thomas.
Man, I don't even know. There's been so
he
many
he was the elite. Like, him and Kelsey was on the same plane. But he had I think he tore his ACL.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Y'all got robbed of him because he was legit.
He played in Miami, right? Miami, Florida. Tight end of Miami, Florida, I believe. Yeah, I can't think of his name. That's actually a good
no. Actually, I think he played for the Gators.
Florida.
Yeah,
I think it was one of those Florida schools. I'm an FSU fan, so I hate both those schools. So, you know, I don't. I know who you're talking about, though. I do. I know who you're talking. I just can't think of his name. That's maybe I'm a failure. Maybe I'm a failure as a Commanders fan. I don't know. I miss Chris Cooley. Okay,
Chris Cooley.
There's a name drop for you right there, Chris Cooley. I don't have anything else tonight, guys. Does anybody have any closing comments they want to say, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've got two little things that we've kind of touched on. To play or not to play, the Joe Burrow situation. I've got a little bit different of a take. I know it's kind of already been a take that's flooded NFL media with other guys that have played my position at quarterback. I mean, you should have, like Alex said, you should have not benched, but you should have sat Burrow to start the year and let him get healthy, because you're investing the $55 million a year in him. You got to take care of him. You don't want to treat him like Robert Griffin III. And even Robert Griffin III had his own take on it, saying he needs to be sat even now. At this point, this season is not necessarily a waste yet. There's a chance you still get back into it. But at the end of the day, as long as you don't piss off Jamar Chase, which is kind of already seeming like it's boiling over and happening because they're not featuring him enough in the offense. I mean, you look at this, and as long as you don't make him mad, this could, in a way, be a tanking year to revitalize the O-line and get draft capital and reinvest in this team and reinvest in Burrow and allow him to get healthy. So I don't look at this I look at this as a season where maybe you should 2008 Patriots it and throw Matt Castle in there. Or whoever Cincinnati's backup is. Obviously, it was Matt Castle with the 08 Patriots. But you look at that situation, it's like, all right, you just invested $55 million into Burrow. Make sure he's healthy, because when he's healthy, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best quarterback in the NFL from a quarterback playing perspective. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is more talented, but in terms of pure playing quarterback in the NFL, Joe Burrow over the last 2 years has been the best quarterback in the NFL. And so you don't need to waste that talent and waste the money on now an injured Joe Burrow for not just this season, but maybe the future. But secondly, when we talk about quarterback injuries, we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's actually a benefit to get Kenny Pickett off the field right now. He hasn't been playing the best football. Mitch Trubisky, I think, maybe gives them a chance to win. But I think the bigger issue here is they need to make changes offensively to play calling and how they attack defenses. Because I look at what the Steelers are doing, and I'm not impressed with anything that they're doing. Now, obviously, Mike Tomlin's not a guy that's going to make midseason changes like firing an offensive coordinator. Tomlin is a very loyal guy. They promoted him. Yeah.
I'm sorry. They promoted him. It drives me nuts. Matt Canada is terrible. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
He's so bad, Justin. And they promoted him.
He's horrible.
Why? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, finish your
rant. But either way, you've got to make changes. I know you're not going to fire Canada midseason because that's not how that organization works. And that organization, again, has been one that has been very successful for a long time. But this might be one of those tail and legs type situations where Mike Tomlin's got to swallow some humble pie here and say, hey, I made a mistake. And he needs to make an offensive change. But at the very minimum, they need to make changes on how they attack defenses, or how they at least attack how they play call and how they come at defenses. It's sickening to see if you're a Steelers fan at all. And then lastly, like I've already mentioned it, but Jets and Vikings, these next two games, or this game, or these next week 5 games, are must wins for them if they want to be in the playoff hunt. And then just to prime everybody up for next week, I think we will have one of the best games of all of the entire weekend with 49ers Cowboys. It may be a defensive slugfest, but I think that game is going to be one that we will be talking about for a while.
Yeah. I agree with there. Nice little preview there. I like the little preview into next week. Little week 5 preview. We don't really do that here, so nice little week 5 preview. I like that. I like that. Dive right into to the top team. I am not a Cowboys fan. I'm not a 49ers fan, so I really don't give a shit about what happens in that game. But I am excited about Brock Purdy playing as well as he has, undefeated in the regular season. I'm excited about it only because of the fact that Mr. Irrelevant, it's an incredible story in that sense alone. And maybe the weapons around him are definitely helping, like without a doubt. But what I'm seeing from him, and you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about Brock Purdy, is the unfathomable just throws that he's making to. I mean, it's one thing to have the talent around you. It's another thing to actually throw people open. Now, Brandon Ayuk is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the game. I love Ayuk. I actually think he's San Francisco's best wide receiver, even though Debo is the best playmaker, or one of the best playmakers.
Yeah. He's the Swiss Army knife.
Yes, I think Ayuk is the best wide receiver that they have, and Purdy is still finding a way between Ayuk's talent and Purdy's talent, which is complementing each other perfectly. Purdy's still finding a way to throw him open, which is something that a lot of quarterbacks don't have the ability to do. And I'm going to be honest with you, he didn't really do that a lot at Iowa State.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's actually doing it now at this level and doing it against NFL talent, Purdy might actually be legit, and they may have actually made the right decision.
I've been screaming it since I've seen him play last year. I thought Brock Purdy was legit. I even said it in our preseason episode.
You did.
He was the franchise quarterback of this organization. And I mean, in my time with Tom House, one of Tom's biggest things to me in my journey through working out with NFL organizations and trying to get my way to the NFL has been what has made Drew Brees and Tom Brady very successful. And what you're going to need to do, Justin, is you're going to need to not just be able to throw to an open receiver, but be able to throw receivers open, which I think I've done a fairly decent job at doing in my career. But it's always taking that next stage. And Brock Purdy is doing that exactly. He didn't necessarily show it at Iowa State, but some of that could have been play calling. Some of that could have been scheme, and didn't need to do it. But you look at the kid. He's played a lot of football. He's been in a lot of situations, had to fight through a lot of adversity, and he's truly shining in a situation that is being invested into him. Granted, it was kind of a crazy, chaotic show to get there with the Trey Lance situation, the Alex Smith situation, and everything before that. But they finally got a guy that I think they're investing the way that Kyle Shanahan did with Matt Ryan or with guys previously.
It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
I'm rooting for him. I mean, I was a fan of his at Iowa State and whatnot. I mean, him and Breece Hall were two of the main reasons why I started watching Iowa State. Like I love Breece Hall. So I'm excited for him, man.
I think they made the best choice for sure.
Yeah, and I think
sorry, it's no disrespect to Trey Lance. Like I want to make sure that we're very well aware. It's no disrespect to Trey Lance by any means. It's just, I mean, that offense with Kyle Shanahan, the way that he runs it, what he does with it, the weapons that are around him. You don't need what in your opinion is a top-notch guy. Now, mind you, Brock Purdy can easily work his way into being a top-notch guy. I mean, even Tom Brady after his first few years was not a top tier 1 guy. I mean, he still had to work his way into it. And Brock Purdy easily can do that, in my opinion. Like, I think he has the talent to do it, and I think he's very capable of doing it. It's just a matter of how bad does he want it. Right.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, I think you see a lot of Tom Brady chip on the shoulder with Brock. Very similarly, even more so because he's not just 6th round pick 199. He is Mr. Irrelevant. And his nickname around football now is Mr. Relevant because of how he's played and become relevant. So I think there is a chip on the shoulder there. But just to kind of wrap all this up and segue it to next week when we'll talk about this 49ers Cowboy game. I honestly, maybe this is hot take Justin here, or maybe I'm still in Chris, maybe I'm still in your thunder here, but I honestly do feel like the 49ers are the team to beat in the NFC. Sorry, Eagles fans. Sorry, Sam. I do think as of right now, the 49ers are the team to beat in the NFC.
I'm not sorry, Eagles fans.
I highly, if he doesn't get hurt,
better Jalen Hurts play. But
if he doesn't get hurt, they win. I think they win that NFC championship.
Oh, of course.
I'm not sorry, Sam. I'm not sorry, Eagles fans. Like I completely agree with Justin. I think the 49ers are, and I think the Niners would have beat you guys in the NFC Championship game. I really do.
Without question.
And we will have a new host next week.
Yeah. Chris, you better go to bat for me. That's all I gotta say.
All right, Chris, you got to talk to the network leader.
You got to talk to the network leader after that one. Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't pop in here on the comments and say something on that note.
So I do want to ask you, Justin. Well, everybody in here, when we talk about elite or top notch, what do you consider an elite or top notch quarterback to be? Because I think there's generational talents, and everybody's pretty much. It's just whatever opportunity is given.
Justin, I'll go first here with my opinion, and then I'll let you because you're the quarterback here of the team. But for me, when I look at a top tier or top notch talent, I look at guys that elevate the players around them, no matter what the talent level may be. I look at guys who can make all the throws, who can make all the right decisions, who can manipulate the pockets. It's the small nuances. It's things that can't be taught. That are there. Like Peyton Manning, one of Peyton Manning's biggest things was he couldn't throw the deep ball. But he still found a way to throw the deep ball because of how accurate it was and the fact that he was able to get guys open with eye movement, shoulder twitches, hips, anything along those lines. Small little nuances. He was able to manipulate the field. That's what I like to see in a pass with it. Now, this is a little bit different of a game than Peyton Manning, right? This game is a little bit more of you're moving the ball with your quarterback a little bit more. It's guys who continually make plays and put them around them. I'm not going to mention names in this situation, but I think we all have a pretty good idea who would be considered the elite guys. I will mention Patrick Mahomes only primarily because I think that we can all agree that if you don't have him at 1, you have him at 2. So he is a guy he does all those small nuances things, but you break it into tiers for me. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and the elite guys, and it's not a large group for me with the elite guys. It's not a large group, and it's got nothing to do with Super Bowl wins either.
Yeah, I think there's guys that are just born to play the position. Those are like the generational talent guys. Like Aaron Rodgers is a generational talent guy to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron Rodgers is a great player for sure.
Yeah, then you got, like you said, guys like Tom Brady. you wouldn't call him a generational talent, but he's a generational player. You know what I mean? Like
Tom Brady is the greatest system quarterback to ever play the game.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get so upset when I say that, but it's legitimately 100% what Tom Brady was, and he leaned into it. His first year in Tampa Bay, it did not start off good. They hit that bye week, and him and Byron Leftwich sat down and redid the offense and added some New England like elements to the offense. And the next thing you know, they went on a run and won the Super Bowl. Like, I love Tom Brady as a player, loved watching him play. But he's the greatest system quarterback to ever play the game, and he's actually the smartest quarterback to ever play the game too, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, but to just kind of piggyback off of Michael, because in reality, I'm very similar in thought here. Like, what makes a guy elite, in my opinion, is it's different things. It's what you define talent versus player. So you have generational talents. Like, I think Zach Wilson is a generational talent. But it's because of what he has the potential to do. But that doesn't mean he's a generational player. At the end of the day, I think what makes a quarterback elite is being able to carry the guys with you and get guys or make guys better. It's that mental processing and it's the emotional management that can say, hey, when I'm green and I'm in the zone, I can give you a fist bump. And when I give you a fist bump, you're green, you're in the zone, and hey, we're going together. Like I lead the ship and I'm making sure that every single one of you come with me. And so that comes in different like forms. So that's obviously guys that are like your football IQ guys that put the team in the right situation every single time and make the correct play. They may not make the big play, but they make the correct play and put their team in a position to succeed every single time because they don't make mistakes. And then you have your guys like Patrick Mahomes who will make the mistakes, or Josh Allen who will make some mistakes, but there's such a generational talent mixed with the mindset, mixed with the leadership, and mixed with growing the mental part of their game to where they bring people alongside of them, they make people better, and they end up winning the football game because of that.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing. Chris, we'll get your thoughts here in a second. I just want to piggyback a little bit right there with Justin. It's also a matter of in my opinion, when things aren't going right, are you doing all the right things as a leader? And that is something that a lot of people tend to fail to realize is the leadership side. Like San Francisco, there was a report that came out in San Francisco that when Trey Lance got drafted, the Niners players were not extremely happy because Garoppolo was their guy. He was the leader in the locker room. And then you start seeing small little nuances like Lance getting sacked and players stepping over him or not helping him up. Simple things like that. And I'm not, that's just speculation, obviously, because that's something that I read, not something that I necessarily saw. But it's all about putting the mentality with that talent. And like I said about Brock Purdy, is how great does he want to be? Because the talent's there, you can see it. It's just a matter of whether or not he wants to be great. Chris, what are your thoughts on that? What do you have to add to this?
So when I look at an elite quarterback, I like the leadership part, but more at the confidence. I look at how confident a guy is. One of the reasons why I believe CJ Stroud is better than Bryce Young is Bryce Young is kind of soft. He's a little soft. He's too nice. CJ is nice, but he had that dog mentality. Also, I look at completion percentage. I value completion percentage. I love when I see a quarterback completing more than 65% of the passes. That to me is a good sign. So when I look at a guy like Shedeur Sanders, I think Shedeur is an elite quarterback because I think what he does with his offensive line, he makes do with what he has. And so it's kind of funny to me, I hear things about Bryce Young and how he has a bad offensive line. CJ was playing with a third-string left tackle, a second-string right tackle, and he still made it work. So it's about making it work in the system that you're in and kind of tailoring the system to your skill set. And I think that's what makes an elite quarterback. I think one example that I can use of that, a quarterback kind of moving the system is I'm going to go with, Jared Goff. I feel like Jared Goff has really been able to kind of create his own system in Detroit, working with a younger offensive coordinator. He's been around the league longer. So that's what elite is to me. I think Kirk Cousins is an elite quarterback. I think
Yeah.
I have to look at the stats. Stats tell a lot at the end of the day.
Stats also don't tell a lot too.
Yeah, stats can lie.
Yeah, stats definitely can lie for sure about that. I think I'm a fan of Jared Goff. I'm glad you mentioned him because I think that Jared Goff is a completely underrated quarterback in this league. And somebody, I think it was Pat McAfee or somebody like that, said that Jared Goff was a top 5 quarterback in this league. I don't have him at that point yet. Top 12, I definitely can put him in, but he definitely has the talent to be top 5. And let's not forget that he's another guy who's had several different offensive coordinators throughout the course of his career because of those coordinators going on to become coaches somewhere else, not because he's been with unstable situations. And Ben Johnson in Detroit is only making him better because Ben Johnson is a hell of an offensive coordinator. And if he's not a head coach by next year, it's going to be a disservice to everybody because he needs to be a head coach somewhere, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's basically how I look at it, Alex, from a standpoint. And honestly, I apply that to every position. I kind of apply that to every position. It's just you have to tweak it, obviously, on a base-by-base basis because, obviously, an offensive tackle is not going to use his eyes to move a safety. If he does, then, well, you might have Anthony Richardson back there under center. No offense to Anthony Richardson, but he's a big dude. Very talented cat, though. So talented. Yeah, for sure. I don't have anything else. I mentioned Chase Claypool just because of everything that's going on. I mentioned the Carolina situation, so I don't think I have anything else there. So,
well, one final thing because I got a Twitter notification. You got breaking news for your Commanders. Rookie defensive back Emmanuel Forbes has deactivated his Twitter account.
Oh, yeah, because he probably had got trolls on his account for shit.
And I know we started the show not mentioning Taylor Swift, but here's my Taylor Swift mention. Byron Murphy Jr., shut up. Please go win the game on Sunday. All right.
Yeah.
See you later, guys.
Sam, and my thing is do not bet on the NFL. I'm going broke right now. I think I'm going to be living out of my car by the time I'm 20. So don't bet on the NFL. Stick to college. Oh, I've lost over $300, man. It's not worth it.
Krish, there's a hotline. I'll get it for you after there's a hotline. It's a gambling hotline. And maybe with everything you just mentioned about Shedeur here, maybe we'll do a college episode of this at some point in time because I have very strong feelings about Shedeur, and it may be a minority take. Maybe a hot take of my own of sorts. Maybe I'll come into your world there with that. So that's going to do it from us here tonight at the Goal Line Stand. It was a little bit longer than I think we anticipated, but hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. And until next week, man, next Tuesday, have a good one.
I'm a game changer.